And we are back, and we just finished watching 2021's Pig, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 32 minutes. The film is directed by Michael Sarnoski.
I think it was written by him, too.
Yes, from a story by Vanessa Block and Michael Sarnoski. The story follows Robin Feld, who was a big-time Portland chef at one point, who leaves that life behind to go out and live in the wilderness, and he has a pig who he loves. But one night...
It's a truffle pig.
It's a truffle pig.
He uses it to find truffles in the woods, and it's clear from the beginning that he does not want anything to do with society.
Yes.
Like, even when the guy who he sells the truffles to arrives and
tries to have conversation with
him. He doesn't say a single word to the guy.
Right.
He just makes the trade and walks back into his house.
And kind of rudely closes the door in that guy's face. Amir, played by Alex Wolff, who we love from Hereditary.
Poor Peter, or Paimon.
What did you think?
I thought it was okay. It was strange because based upon the trailers, you think you're going to watch some sort of like John Wick style revenge thriller. And this was not that at all. This was just, I would say, aside from the scene where the pig gets abducted, there really isn't any kind of violence in this movie. And it's more of like it's almost like a quiet piece. Yeah. This guy he's just looking for the pig. He's reconnecting with his past. I guess coming to grips with his past as well as the journey progresses. And you could see that not only was he an amazing chef in his past, but I'm guessing like he just sort of understands people. And the way he gets the information out of whoever he needs to is he pretty much gives them what they want. And it's like he knows what they want, and he just puts himself in that position, or he tells them stuff, or he makes them understand themselves. And all the while, Alex Wolff's character is just sort of like stunned by what he's seeing.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm guessing Alex Wolff is getting some sort of an education as far as human psychology as they're going through, because seriously, Nicolas Cage he breaks these people down and gets them to give him this information. There's no threats, there's no physicality. And you think, and that's another thing, you really think that that's going to happen because Nicolas Cage looks like some sort of like apocalyptic hobo. You think he'll be flipping over tables and cracking skulls, and he just calmly talks to these people, and he explains to them, like especially when he spoke to that chef.
Yeah, Chef Derek. I was going to highlight that scene because I thought that was really, really impressive.
That scene was incredibly impressive. He's basically just like, this is all fake.
Yeah.
The customers are fake. This restaurant is fake. The critic is fake.
Even you are fake.
You are fake.
Because you're not living your authenticity.
Yeah. This is not what you want. Remember, and the thing that was amazing is the guy worked for him for 2 months and he fired him for overcooking pasta. But he knew everything about the guy. He's like, remember what your signature dish was? Remember how you wanted to open a pub?
British pub, yeah, an English pub.
And the guy
and the line that really struck a chord with me was, we don't get a lot of things to really care about.
Yeah. And that goes to the whole quest for this pig.
Yeah.
Because the guy is like, well, why don't you just buy a new one? And he's just like, because I love her.
Right.
It was his companion. It was just him and this pig in the woods. And it was just like, that was his baby. He'd feed it. He'd take care of it. He didn't even need it.
No, because he said that to Amir.
and like
he's like, I don't need the pig to find the truffles.
And you see that, I mean, they don't tell you it, but you see it in the beginning because he's the one who's doing all the work.
Right.
The pig's just there for companionship. It keeps him company, and it sort of like helps him not have to deal with the grief that he's been running away from. There's a part,
or it also offers the companionship without the commitment, because it's an animal, right? And animals usually just love you unconditionally, right? They don't care, they don't question, they don't want to know about your past. It's like, feed me, I love you. Be kind to me, I love you. You know what I mean?
As I was saying, I also think he was trying to get away or escape the grief that he was clearly still dealing with, because
right.
there's the part where he gets batteries for his tape deck
to hear,
and
that
he
cassette.
puts the cassette in, he plays it for like 10 seconds, and then he's just like, enough of that.
Right.
And then it's just back to doing whatever the hell he's doing, making dinner for the pig. And I think that was like part of the story was, I guess, accepting grief or confronting grief or confronting loss. And that is true in the final confrontation, where there's no big showdown, there's no fisticuffs or anything. It's he understands who he's dealing with. He understands how to get at him and
gets the answer, not the answer he wanted, but he gets the answer that ultimately resolves
the story. Yeah. And like I said, this was really well done. It was not what I was expecting at all.
Me too. Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of it, I think the way it was phrased, definitely you expected him to like bust out with some kind of crazy. We've seen him be physical in like Mandy, and even the amazing jujitsu that we saw. This is not like either of those films. Mandy, I actually liked a lot, but that's also just a crazy movie. But
there's like this expectation with Nicolas Cage that the role he's going to play is like some unhinged madman now.
Right.
He's pretty much just sort of like made that his calling card as an actor later in his career, where all the characters that that get showcased about Nicolas Cage now, it's like he's like bug-eyed and flailing his hands around and screaming at people. And this was not that. He was quiet. He was deliberate in the way he spoke. There was no points where he's like ranting uncontrollably. I think there's one part where he yells, "I want my pig."
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And that was highlighted in the trailer, which made you think right after that scene he just slaughters like 80 people. But no, there is no slaughter. There is no killing in this movie. It's a character piece. It's a character piece.
I, too, would say it's an okay film. However, I liked it a lot, but I did feel like there was a lot of ambiguity. Maybe I'm one of those viewers that wants everything spelled out, but we find out about a character named Lauren, and we're not really given too much information, but I felt like it was just kind of there, right? And it didn't, not that it didn't go anywhere, but I guess a parallel could be made between Robin's character and Amir's character as far as loss and grief. So I guess that's why the Lauren character was introduced. I'm not really sure, but the thing that really won me over was the relationship between Robin and Amir, which I thought it wasn't typical, but it was lovely. And it was an interesting journey that both characters take together. And Robin is not an easy person to deal with or to care about, but Amir does. And I think
he grows too, because I think at the beginning Robin was pretty much just a meal ticket for him.
Right.
Amir was trying to start his own business.
Right.
That was sort of in competition with what his father did.
Right.
And he had this this source of amazing truffles.
Which was Robin.
Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, like I said, it was like, I think he was there basically because I need this guy.
Right, right.
But as the story progressed, you could see that there was like
but I also,
a growing caring from Amir.
But I think,
And also from Robin to Amir as well.
right. No. But I was going to say that I think it was probably before this, because you can't, whatever the case may be, they have a relationship. I mean, it's on the surface, it's a business relationship. But at the same time, I feel like you can't just not have an understanding with someone, especially if you see them every Thursday, even if it's in a short window. And I think that your experiences, right? Your experiences shape who you are. And in a lot of ways, they were very, very similar. The whole thing about loss and grief. I think they both understood that well, very, very, very much. Probably more so than the other one realized. And I think that when they do go on this kind of road trip together, they really come to understand the other person. And there was a lot of really good little scenes in this. The Derek scene, the Chef Derek scene, by far, I think was one of my favorites in this movie. But there was a scene where Robin says to Amir, like, kind of like, your father's kind of a jerk. And it was almost like he kind of takes him under his wing a little bit.
Yeah.
Robin takes Amir. And I really love the scene where he's like teaching him how to prepare this meal, right? Mm-hmm. And then even at the end, he's like, see you Thursday.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, in spite of everything that happened, that those two will continue their relationship.
Yeah.
Because I think that having had this experience with Amir, Robin understood him a little bit better. And I think vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they now had like an actual friendship.
Yes. It was more so than before. But I mean, I think even in the beginning, I mean, it's funny. We were watching it and we're like, you know, it's so weird to see Alex Wolff play kind of like this jerky guy, this jerky young man who is just all flash and no substance.
I didn't get the impression he was a jerk so much as he was like really aspiring to be like this sort of like slick businessman.
Yes.
And you could see in the character moments with him that he really wasn't.
Right.
But he was trying.
Yes.
Like the whole speech he's given himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And just the way he dealt with other people. Even when he was trying to get the reservation.
Yes, and he couldn't until he pulled the name, right?
Yeah, you could see he was like sort of floundering. He was trying to be slick about it.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was just like, I'll give you half off. You know, I'll give you half of the truffles. And the guy's like, no. And the guy's like, okay, it's for Robin Feld. And that's what and it's funny that later on he's like, when Robin is like, I need you to get me this stuff, and he's like, I don't think I can get this, and he's just like, tell him it's for Robin Feld, and he's like, I could use your name. It's like he had, like, he was given the power.
Yes. And it was nice to see it in action.
Yeah, I mean, that name opened up doors.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in the scene with Chef Derek, he's like, the chef is like, oh, you haven't been on the scene in like 10 years. And Amir was like, no, 15.
Yeah,
like he corrects him.
Everybody knew who he actually was.
He was, yeah. So he must have had such an impact in this like restaurant food community.
Yeah, and you could sort of see why, considering just the abilities that he had, not only in just cooking, but also, I guess, in like reading people and just remembering everything.
Yes,
seriously,
when he tells Adam Arkin, like, I know every meal that I cooked for every person that I served.
Every person I've ever served.
Yeah, that was, and
it wasn't bullcrap, because he knew exactly what to make.
Yeah,
and
to make Amir's dad,
he brought him to tears.
Yeah. That was amazing. That was an amazing scene. Yeah, I mean,
and that was also leads back into the whole confronting your grief, remembering. I think part of the way that these men were sort of like not dealing with it, was just trying to fill their life with something else to forget, whether it was a pig or ruthless business practices or aspiring to be a ruthless businessman. They were all hiding from confronting
that grief
and dealing with it and processing it in a healthy way. And I think that's part of what the whole story was about, because at the end, I think they're all on their way to truly dealing with it, to confronting it. And maybe, who knows, maybe the dad won't be a complete douchebag.
We'll see.
He seemed to be like, I mean, he was willing to do what he did, but in the end, he basically fessed up to the matter.
Yeah.
And
I also wonder if it's supposed to be like a character study on male behavior, because all the important women in these men's lives have been taken away, and it's just them sort of floundering through life.
Yeah.
Which I thought was also an interesting note. I mean, there's a scene where the Nicolas Cage character goes to visit, I guess, someone he used to work with who's now a baker. But even that scene, it's like it's shot far away. It's very muted. I mean, I feel like that could have been taken out. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking about that scene now, and it's like, would it have changed the trajectory of the story? Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, I guess it was just more evidence of who he was and how much influence he had on all of these people.
Right. And that character does bring up Lauren.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. And you see his face at the door. And it's interesting. I mean, I don't think it's funny. We vaguely looked at some reviews for this movie, or read like 1 or 2 lines of reviews for this movie. And everybody made it seem like this was a tour de force performance, and not to take away from it, because it was a good performance by everybody. Everybody did a really great job, in particular Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff. I still feel like my piece de resistance from Nicolas Cage is definitely adaptation. I love that movie.
Adaptation was brilliant, yeah.
I love that movie. I love everything about that movie. And I would put Jiu-Jitsu second. No, I'm just kidding. I was just being silly.
No, I mean, he's
such an interesting actor. He really is.
He's definitely fallen into, I need money to pay off my taxes, so I will do anything. But he is capable. He comes out with something putting out a really good performance. I think this was definitely
one of them. This is definitely one of them. I mean, I enjoyed Mandy a lot, even though that movie is also bananas.
Mandy was just
nuts.
Berserk.
Yeah. But
a good berserk.
But a
not
good
like
berserk.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Not like Jiu-Jitsu.
Garbage.
Oh my God, that was so terrible.
Absolute feces.
Anything else you want to highlight about this film? I feel like this is one of those films that like you could sort of watch again and find new things in.
Maybe.
I liked how the filmmaker shot Oregon. I loved the beauty and the stillness of the wilderness, and it was interesting to see that juxtaposed with like the more hectic busyness of the city and those scenes. And it was interesting because for the first third of the movie, where he's just in the woods with his pig, it's just quiet, easy living, right?
Yeah, he is filthy.
He is
throughout
filthy.
The whole movie.
Yes.
Like, he never washes ever in the movie, and
well, at the end, he sort of throws water on his face,
but
he
still has like blood on his face from like the first attack throughout the entire every place he goes, even when he's like at the fancy restaurant, he is
caked in blood
and he's just filthy.
Yeah,
he's wearing like his long johns
that were like
encrusted with sweat, like
and God knows what else.
Yeah. And he didn't have a shower because one of the things that Amir is like,
Amir's like, you want me to get you?
Do you want me to get you like a shower? I gotta have like it'll be hot water. And He just
Which
closes
he
the door.
totally shouldn't even ask him, should just buy it for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He definitely needs one of those things. God, I mean, his little
Seriously,
pajamas.
If I was Amir, when I brought him to the house, I would cover everything with plastic.
Yes,
So
yes.
you could
I would
you could sleep
insist
on
that
the
you.
plastic.
Yeah, I would insist that you take a bath,
Yeah.
Robin, before you did anything in my
like
apartment. And that was another thing.
some
He
lice
brought him
combs.
to his home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like he obviously felt comfortable enough to bring this crazy lunatic into his house. So yeah, it was a really interesting movie. I feel like this is one of those movies where I'd have to watch it again and sit with it and contemplate some more. But for right now, I think it definitely gets a thumbs up for me. I think I would totally recommend this film. It's not going to be everyone's taste.
Don't go by the trailer. This is not an action movie at all.
This is definitely a character study.
This is definitely a character study. It's like we said, it's about
Loss and
learning to
grief.
confront your grief.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty heavy subject.
Yes, but it's done very well here. And it's also interesting how their two lives, Robin and Amir's, parallel. To me, anyway.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that was one of my, not complaints, but my only issue with it was that I felt like a lot of stuff was kind of up in the air. Like there's that scene where he goes back to, I guess, the house that he lived in, and he has that conversation with that little boy. Like I'm like, that you could have taken that out of the film as well.
I think that just goes to illustrating him coming to terms with his past.
Possibly.
That's the house that he used to live in. He's coming back to this place where he was like
the
king of the world.
Yeah.
And now he looks like a bum.
Pauper, yeah.
And seeing these things, I'm sure it's, I guess, therapeutic in a way.
Maybe.
But also it's funny because he's like, by going out and trying to recover this, for lack of a better words, crutch, the pig, he's being forced to deal with his past.
Right.
And confront this grief that he's been carrying. And
so when he's crying, do you think it's for the pig or is it for the past? Or maybe it's both?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because it's not like as though they ever say like the pig has a name.
Right. It's just
always
the
just
pig.
she.
Yeah, she. Yeah.
She. Who are they talking about?
Right. And there was a scene where I turned to you and I'm like, are they talking about Lauren or are they talking about the pig? Remember?
Yeah.
I forgot what the scene was, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd probably say 7.5.
7.5. I too would give it a 7.5. I think it's a good story from where it starts to where it ends up. The cinematography is lovely. The character arcs are really, really well done. Kudos to Alex Wolff and Nicolas Cage, who is a delight here. I mean, it's like you said, I think he's had more misses than hits as of fairly recently, but this is definitely not one of them. This
feels like him actually trying.
Yeah. And I think it definitely shows, and it's nice when he gets a win in his column, because I think he definitely has in latter years picked kind of questionable things, but if you look at his early filmography, there are so many good things in it, and you almost forget in a way.
Yeah,
you almost forget
he
is a talented guy, and I really wish he was a little bit more picky with his roles, but
I think he owes a lot of money to people. So it's just like, hey, how much? Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of these
things. That's unfortunate. I mean, with his filmography, he should have had a really good financial advisor who he should never have to resort to this.
He liked wasting money. I mean,
he did.
really liked
and he's had a
wasting
few
money.
wives,
And he's
which
had a
I'm
couple
sure
of wives, and
adds up.
I think he forgot to pay the tax man a couple of years in a row. And
But he never went to prison like other people, so at least that's good for him.
uh-huh.
But yeah, I too would give this a 7.5. It's really an interesting film about loss and grief,
Yeah.
and it's told in a very interesting way. It's not super obvious, but it's there, and I think
it helps. It's just an interesting character.
yeah,
You know,
agreed.
You're sort of brought along for the ride of discovering this mysterious character who reveals himself as the film goes on.
Yeah, but I also think it's also kind of like New Beginnings too, because you can't leave the Amir storyline out. I think Amir's an important part of this journey, and I think Amir also learns a lot in these few days, I guess, of being with Robin, and we also get a window into him and what he's about. And there was another like interesting thing that I kind of picked up on, and I'm sure you did too, was when he goes to visit and he's outside the door talking to this person. I don't want to give too much away. And then later on in the house, he's outside the door, almost apologetic, talking to someone. So I just thought, like, here's this young man who kind of operates on this almost, I don't know how to describe it, but almost like apologetically, something I've heard someone say about like feeling like they're bothering people. And I think that was interesting because he seemed to operate in that way too.
Well, I think it goes back to the whole not wanting to confront things. I mean, the first time he's outside of in the first case where he's outside a door speaking to someone through the door, he doesn't want to go into the door because he doesn't want to see what's behind it. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be confronted by it. But he does see it and he walks away. Right. It's not like an angry. Well, he's disturbed.
Sure.
And the second time, he's behind the door and he basically opens the door. And he makes that confrontation.
Right.
It's something that he normally wouldn't do. I don't even think he would have gone into the house, to be honest.
Right.
But he does it because this is part of Robin's whole plan.
Right. And he somewhat feels responsible.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so we'll wrap it up. So we definitely recommend Pig, which is out for rent right now on Amazon Prime. So check it out. And that's it from us. And we will come back with another review soon. Good night.
Good night.